And for our final keynote of the afternoon, please welcome the Executive Chairman of Beyond Meat and co-founder of Honest Tea, Seth Goldman.
Hi there. So now, these days, I'm splitting my time between Honest Tea and Beyond Meat. I'm spending a lot of time both in Los Angeles, where Beyond Meat is based, as well as Washington, D.C., which is near Honest Tea's Bethesda, Maryland headquarters. It's hard to find two cities with a more different vibe than L.A. and Washington, D.C. But the one thing they do have in common is lots of traffic, so I'm going to start with a traffic joke. This guy is driving home on the Beltway, and as he's driving, he gets a call from his wife, and she says, "Oh, honey, please be careful. I just heard the traffic report, and there's some moron driving the opposite way on the highway." And he says, "One moron? There's like 200 morons driving the wrong way on the highway." So you never know when you're that one moron driving the opposite way, but at both Honest Tea and Beyond Meat, we've often felt like we're going against the direction everyone else is headed. I want to share with you today, though, stories about how going against the traffic has created amazing opportunities for us and also for some of the retailers who we found who worked with us. So let's talk about what's happening in food. There's really two fundamental trends. And I'll show you both the undoing of food, which is about simplification and transparency in the ingredients, and the redoing of food, which is about using science and technology to improve upon an incumbent. But first of all, where are they moving away from? Well, for those of you who grew up around Wonder Bread, which I did, they're moving away from what we'll just call sort of conventional food. And I remember when I was growing up, Wonder Bread was an amazing product because it stayed fresh for so long. And of course, when you look at the ingredient panel, you realize what was helping it stay fresh. Well, among other things, the dough conditioners. And I didn't even know that was a thing until I looked up the ingredient panel. But you can see all the different ingredients. I'm not sure I'd even want to put dough conditioner in my hair, let alone in my body. But you can imagine today's consumer looking at that ingredient panel and saying, that just doesn't feel like where I want to head. And what we saw at Honest Tea, 20 years ago, I was running in Central Park, and I got thirsty after the run, and I went to the beverage cooler, and I said, "There's nothing here for me." And I was with a friend. He said, "What do you mean there's nothing here? There's, hundreds of drinks." I said, "Yeah, but they all have the same profile. They all have the same sweetness calories. They have the same, basically all the same ingredients. Why wasn't anybody making a product that was both organic, instead of having 6 or 7 teaspoons of sugar, maybe had 1 or 2? And so that led to the creation of Honest Tea, which you see here. I started out of my house with 5 thermoses and a empty Snapple bottle that we pasted a label on. I managed to get an appointment with the Whole Foods buying office in Rockville, Maryland, and served some samples and told the buyer, "We want to sell this in your store." And we're very fortunate the buyer was willing to take a risk with me, and he said, "Great, I'll take 15,000 bottles," which was terrifying for me because I'd never made it anywhere but my kitchen. But we managed to make the product, and that's where we got our start. And you can see over the next 20 years, we've just celebrated our 20th anniversary, we continue to innovate around health and wellness, around transparency of ingredients, around simplification of ingredients, to be the first organic tea, the first fair trade tea. And every time we did, we kept expanding our customer base and our channels. In 2008, we took in a 40% investment from the Coca-Cola company, and that helped us scale the business further. And then in 2011, Coca-Cola bought the rest of Honest Tea, and now we've expanded around the country to 140,000 retail outlets, as well as around the globe. We just launched in 40 markets across Europe last month. One of the most exciting steps that we just announced just a few months ago is that Honest Kids, our kids drink, has now expanded into all of McDonald's restaurants in the United States. So a real step towards democratizing organic, towards bringing healthier, lower calorie drinks, not just to the people in Whole Foods, though we love Whole Foods, or the people on the coast, but really to all Americans. And for those who had been skeptical that you can't scale organic or you can't do it in a way that's price competitive, we've been able to show that can be done. So Honest Tea really allowed me to tap an entrepreneurial urge and excitement I have. As the transition has happened with Coca-Cola, I'm still involved with the business, but I also felt that entrepreneurial tug of wanting to find the next great challenge, the next way to think about how we can change America's diet and how we can change the way we interact with our ecosystem as we feed ourselves. And for me, that happened to come through Beyond Meat. So what happened in 2012, my wife was reading an article about this company that was getting started in California called Beyond Meat. And she said, this is a company that's, the article talked about this company that was trying to create plant-based meat products that really perfectly replicate the taste and texture of meat. And she said, wow, that would be a great, it happened to be her birthday when she read the article. She said, that would be a great birthday present because our family's been vegetarian for 13 years, but we've consistently been dissatisfied with call it the veggie burgers of the world. In fact, we used to joke that if the meat industry were trying to discourage people from having a plant-based diet, the veggie burger would be a perfect strategy. Because people try a veggie burger once and they say, I don't need to be a vegetarian that badly. And in fact, the percentage of people who are vegetarian or vegan in the US population has held steady at 5% for decades. People often say, it feels like more people are being vegan or vegetarian, but there's just a lot of churn. And so I was trying to think of an image I could share with you that would help convey the level of dissatisfaction people have for plant-based protein. And we found this picture. This is from Houston. This is a grocery store in Houston just after Hurricane Harvey. You can see the shelves were cleared out except for the veggie aisle. No one was that desperate. So what an amazing opportunity, right? If we could actually find products that can deliver on the taste challenge. And then another way to think about it is to look how the dairy aisle has transformed, right? So we all know about soy milk, almond milk, rice milk, coconut milk. The dairy aisle, now 14% of dairy sales are plant-based dairy. And what happened there? Well, what happened was the people producing the product that started with products like silk, they developed an analog that was competitive enough, not exactly the same as dairy milk, but close enough that they could package it and merchandise it adjacent to dairy milk. And when they did that, you can look at the growth. Now the meat, and so that's about a $12 billion category, about 14% of dairy now is plant-based. But on the other side, meat is over almost a $200 billion category, but instead of being at 14%, it's that little bar, that little less than 1%. And that's because the products just haven't been able to be good enough or close enough to the analog to get merchandised adjacent to what they're trying to be either a substitute for or a complement to. And so at Beyond Meat, we said, well, let's think about this a different way. And what happened was, I didn't finish the story. After my wife read the article about Beyond Meat, I went online and I found on the website, info@beyondmeat.com. And I sent an email saying, hey, this sounds really interesting, this vision of transforming the meat case, not into the protein case. So instead of having, chicken breast and hamburger and lamb chops, there's chicken protein, cow protein, and plant protein. It's all part of the same continuum. I said, that's a wonderful vision. I'd love to help out if I can. And, as I knew the company was early enough that the CEO was reading the emails that come through the website. And so he emailed me back and said, oh my gosh, if you can help out, that'd be wonderful. And I became an investor and board member and then executive chair of the board. And we've developed this great partnership of taking this challenger concept and scaling it. And so what it starts with, the core idea is, can we redefine meat? Can we redefine what it is? So today when I say, when we talk about what is meat, we all think about it as protein from an animal, right? Primarily the muscle of an animal. But if you get to a more fundamental question of what is meat, what it really is it's an assembly of amino acids that form the proteins, the lipids, the fats that form the lipids, obviously mostly water, some trace minerals and carbohydrates. Well, all of those components exist in the plant kingdom. Obviously, water is water. We can use Canadian yellow pea as our source of our protein. We can take coconut oil and canola oil and blend them together to replicate the fats. And then the other minerals that are all widely available in the plant kingdom. The key step is how we put them together. So if I gave you a mixing bowl and you put in pea protein and coconut oil and canola oil, you stir them around and you flatten them into a burger, you're not going to get what our product tastes like. The key actually is around the physics. It's how we use a process called extrusion, which is basically, if you remember the Play-Doh factories that just combine and things and put them through a chamber. Well, what we do is we use extrusion, the heat and the pressure, to break up the fats and distribute the fats alongside the protein so that they retain their moisture in a way that when you chew into the product, it still has the warmth and flavor of what a meat product has. And when you do that right, you end up with a product that looks like this and a product like tastes what. Raise your hand if you've tasted the product that's being served out here. I'd like to give a shout out to, we have some Beyond Meat burger flippers in here. They've been doing a fantastic job today. And after this, you're certainly welcome to go out and taste it. And the taste is the difference. You know, it's interesting in this company, it's very R&D focused. We've raised quite a bit of money over the years. Whenever we've raised the choice between marketing or product development, we've just continued to double down on product development. And the burger you're tasting, we're very happy with. But just last week, I tasted a product that's at least 50% better than this product. We just continue to iterate, continue to improve, and that's what's exciting, right? The cows evolved for several hundreds or thousands of years, depending on how you define what a cow is. This business, we've been in business for just a little over 9 years, and every month this product gets better. So we know that although the product isn't perfect yet, it'll continue to improve. And then the key step was, how do we get this to more people? So as a vegetarian, I know that most vegetarians buy their protein in the freezer. And it's important to have that product for people who are vegan or vegetarian. But our goal was never to become the best-selling veggie burger. Our goal was to make this available to everybody, to the 95% of people who aren't vegan or vegetarian. And in order to do that, we had to convince the meat buyers to carry our product. So our first account was Whole Foods, and we reached out to the Whole Foods meat buyer. He said, well, why would I even meet with you? I don't eat veggie burgers. I don't buy veggie burgers. He said, you have to taste this to understand what we're talking about. So he walks into a room, and we had one of those plug-in griddles, just like our team has over at the table. And we put the burger on the griddle, and it starts sizzling in a way that no veggie burger ever has. Then it starts creating an aroma in a way that no veggie burger has. And then when he tasted it, he said, I get it. And so we got retailers, first Whole Foods, and then Safeway and Kroger as well, to carry this product in the meat section. And this has really been transformational, not just to our business, but to the meat aisle. Because all of a sudden, we have some regions of some of these stores where the Beyond Burger is the top-selling packaged burger product in the section. Number 2 is the Black Angus burger, and the Beyond Burger is number 1. And by the way, the Beyond Burger, our retail price for those packages, $5.99 for 2 quarter pounders. That's basically $12 a pound. So that's certainly incremental revenue for the retailer. But it also is a case of this retailer helping the consumer. You know, consumers are continually on this path to trying to move towards better health, and the retailer is recognized as an ally, offering the consumer something they haven't had access to before. So it's been really exciting. We've also seen this burger expand to channels like TGI Fridays. And one of the things that's exciting about TGI Fridays and every restaurant that we've seen our product carried in is that when we go to those restaurants, it's never a veggie burger. It's merchandised as the Beyond Burger. We are really, we recognize, because the product does cost more, at least now it costs more to make, it would be a waste of the investment to paying extra then and then to not call it the Beyond Burger. So we found a great deal of interest. And in fact, we worked with TGI Fridays, their first 90 days of their launch. Over 50% of their social media impressions were about the Beyond Burger being at TGI Fridays. So really exciting to see how that has expanded. And coming up soon is the Beyond Sausage. So this is a product we've already launched in a few stores. Plant-based protein again in a sausage form. And for this one, the challenge, of course, with meat sausages, you use the intestine as the casing. Well, we couldn't do that. So we had to find an alginate-based casing for the sausage. And it's really exciting to see that launch. And I want to share with you now just a big picture vision for this. As you may be able to tell from the way I've been talking, I think of myself as an activist more than an entrepreneur, and I'll share with you a story of another activist and the way they think about impact. So there were 2 Henrys who lived in the 1800s. The first one I'll talk about is Henry Bergh. He was an American who lived and worked in Russia as a diplomat. He saw how horses were literally worked to death in Russia, and he thought, well, I'm not going to be able to change the laws in Russia because an American there. But he came back to the United States and he created the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals and helped pass laws to protect animals so they could be rested and watered a certain amount. So he did a lot to help horses. But there was another Henry Ford, who was not known as a humanitarian, but who literally helped transform the term horsepower from the horse to the combustion engine, to tractors and trucks and cars. And if you were to ask a horse who did more to help you, who enhanced your quality of life, and the horse could answer in a language that we could understand, the horse might say, well, that Henry Berg had his heart in the right place, but Henry Ford transformed the way I live. And at Beyond Meat, we're very thankful and fortunate that we have wonderful investors. Some of the investors include Tyson Foods and Don Thompson, the former CEO of McDonald's. But some of the other investors include the Humane Society and people from PETA. And we certainly appreciate when PETA's out there promoting the plant-based diet. But we know that you can only encourage people to pursue a plant-based diet so much. You have to have the products that deliver. And so, although it might be nice to think about doubling the population of vegetarians in the United States, I think a more realistic goal is to think about having every American family have one more plant-based meal per week. So 1 out of 21 meals, that would effectively be like doubling the amount of vegetarians in the population. And we think a product like ours can help make that happen. And if we do that right, we know we can have an impact around environment, around health, global resource constraints, and animal welfare. And I want to just give you a closing thought. What are some of the common themes here? Well, first of all, both undoing and redoing of food are driven by health and environmental concerns. They are usually not in the playbook of the large food companies. A lot of big companies are changing and evolving. Coca-Cola has created the Venturing and Emerging Brands unit, which invested in Honest Tea and has really increasingly become important as we think about innovation. But taste is still paramount. We can talk about all the ways we want to change the world, and we can encourage retailers to join us, but unless we have products that deliver to the consumer, it's more idealism than it is practical. And just in closing, I'll share with you 2 proverbs. These are from Honest Tea bottle caps. The first is, if we don't change the direction we are headed, we will end up where we are going. And when you think about health trends, the United States is not headed in the right direction. So every 5 years, the UN ranks the average life expectancy of all the countries in the world. There's about 200 countries in the world. And before I share with you where the United States ends up in the rankings, if you were to guess, you would assume, well, we're the wealthiest nation in the history of the world. We have more knowledge of science and medicine and nutrition than any civilization in history has ever had. We spend more per capita on healthcare than any country. We've got to be top 10. But in fact, number 1 was Japan. Number 2 was Italy, and the United States was number 42. And to me, that's a tragedy. I'm proud and thankful and fortunate that I was born an American, that I was able to create this business and both Honest Tea and now Beyond Meat to help grow those enterprises and make change impact. But that shouldn't happen in this country. And it is a tragedy. It shouldn't happen. But it's also an incredible business opportunity. It's an incredible business opportunity for entrepreneurs, and it's a credible business opportunity for retailers, because we can help shape what happens in people's diets. And just through what I've shown you, the choices we make available, how we prioritize them, how we promote them, absolutely can drive change. And frankly, I think not ignoring that responsibility is both a loss of business, but also a loss of opportunity. And so I will admit, it's not easy work. Both companies have had moments of challenge where we are going against the prevailing winds. And some of the retailers we worked with, they took a little bit of heat. The meat buyer saying, I'm going to be carrying a plant-based meat product when you've got a lot of constituents who don't appreciate that choice. The tough things are never, the tough things by definition are tough. And in closing, I'll share with you this bottle cap. Those who say it should not be done should not interrupt the people doing it. And we certainly hope you'll join us in helping transform the American diet. Thank you very much.